I'm Beau Wagner. I'm a Dugout Canoe carver and Coast Salish artist. Um, my father is Rick Warbrick, and his mother is Mary Ballou. This is called a straight knife. They're actually a little dirty right now because I was just carving in the woods with George Seymour. So that's a slight bend in it. Sometimes people call those planer. This is a harder hook, or I think a quarter hook, I think they call it. And then this is the half hook. And then this is the full hook. So this is can remove a lot of material at once. You can, when you're holding a knife, your thumb is up and down with the blade. It gives you lots of control. Don't hold it like this. Hold it like this. Kind of how that looks. And then these more detailed knives, you can get closer in, like say if there was a line right there, I could follow that line easier. Or texturing, you can texture with them. I'm gonna come back. And you can go forwards or pull it back towards you. So if I was texturing, that's kind of what it would look like. Have you ever seen a totem pole and it's got that look to it? And then the planer, so then I can come back and just take all that right off. Yeah. So yeah, if you look closely, right here is quite thick. And then all the places where you're, like, so if I was doing a detailed work, sometimes the knife ends up right here because I'm getting in close. At one time, if I even touched it to my skin, it would just bleed. So it's funny how over the years it just becomes like leather. One of your most important tools. It looks just like a thin piece of wood. It doesn't matter if you're doing a full-on travel journey canoe or right down to your little tiny models. In order to draw fair lines, you need what's called a batten. And that's tight grain, straight grain pieces of wood, and the thickness depends on how tight of a radius are you drawing. And so while I'm doing these little canoes, I have about maybe just under 1/4 of an inch batten, and you want it to at least be 4 inches longer than what you're bending, so that you can anyway, yeah, so that's why I'm using, it's called a batten. It's one of the most important tools in canoe carving or wooden boat building. I'm a Silva Bay Wooden Boat School graduate, and so I went to college for wooden boat building, and it's one of the biggest reasons why my teacher brought me into his studio, is to he's like, wooden boat builder, eh? Let's see what you can do. And so I started carving with him back in the beginning of 2013. And my first canoe, he wanted me to carve models and make singles and doubles and 6-mans with them. But he said, at first you just have to I'll carve them, and then you sand and finish them and install the kickers and do a lot of the finish work. And so I did a lot of that, and I lived with him, and during that time he would turn one of these, he'd make a bowl in just a few hours, and he'd say, "No, you carve one." And so I'd pick up a block of wood, and this is after carving on a single all day, and he'd go, "Okay, now carve a bowl." So I'd start carving a bowl, and he's like, "You finished? Doesn't look done to me." And I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm done." And so he laughs and he goes, "Okay, go take my bowl and go take your bowl and go put it in the ocean, see what happens." And so I'd take his canoe bowl and stick it in the ocean, and it would turn toward the wave. And I was like, "Holy, that's amazing." And I stuck mine in the water and immediately rolled onto its side and filled full of water. And he laughed and he said, "Throw it in the fire and start again." For exaggeration purposes, we kind of exaggerate the lines, and just to make it more appealing. So if this is 5 inches wide, I'll go back on the bottom 5 inches, and I'll go up about 5 inches. The nose and the head of the canoe are about the same. So if the nose is, say, 1/2 inch, then I make the ears 1/2 inch as well. So I'll come up about there, I'll come back, and then I take the batten I'd love to do this kind of work with teenagers, and teach them this form line that was once thought lost. Sorry, my lines are a little sloppy. There you go. And we want to add a little bit of shape to the bottom, so we're at 1/2 is there. So we come up. And always remembering that this is always past where we're wanting to draw the line. And the reason why I'll keep bringing that up is because you can't get a fair line if this is on the edge. You'll get a flat spot. I'm sure if Joel Good or one of my carver friends sees this too, gonna laugh at my lines, but it's okay. And then I'm gonna go up. Like, you don't want a big head and a little tail, you want them. It is, again, of course, exaggerated. Like a real canoe wouldn't quite be like this. However, it kind of just adds a little bit more effect when it's kind of been blown up a little bit, so to speak. If we're looking at a round, let's say all the rings, the outer rings and the inner rings, we want the bottom of the canoe, the bottom, to be the south side of the tree. Oh no, sorry, the north side of the tree. And we want the top of the head of the canoe to be on the north side. And the reason why that is, on the north side of the tree, it didn't get a lot of light, and the rings are a lot tighter. Here, in this piece of wood, the grain they'll be, like on this one, if I put my finger over top of the grain, there's about 5 or 6 grains per finger. But on this one, if I were to do it, there might only be one. Cedar is very absorbent. It absorbs every single spoken word. So our elders, our old people, they would go into the forest and they would leave their songs, their prayers, their kindness behind, so that, because they knew that all their loved ones, their grandchildren and great-grandchildren and the souls that haven't arrived here yet, they wouldn't get to meet them. And they had so much love, they had so much prayers and songs. They knew that one day we might lose our language. So what they did was they left their love and their joy, their kindness, the belonging. Each grain represents that love and that joy. If we slow down and listen, you'll hear the cedar. You'll hear the wind blow through the trees. Those are songs that are left behind. When you hear the water rolling over the stones in the creek, that's the love and the joy, the healing